Hey everybody, my name is Mark Costaglo. I'm the CRO at Catalyst. I also had the distinct honor of being the first employee at Outreach, and I led them to about $250 million in sales while I was there for 8 years. And it was a great run. And so SaaStr actually called me a few weeks ago and said, hey, we'd love for you to share a couple things that worked for you at Catalyst when you moved over as CRO and a couple things that didn't work. So I've heard that you're supposed to start like every talk with a joke. I'm not a very funny guy, so of course I went to my buddy ChatGPT and asked for a joke. This is a pretty damn good joke. Y'all want me to tell it as a human real quick? Yes. Yeah. All right. So an AE, a CRO, and a VC walk into a bar. The AE says, I got a hot lead on a drink. The CRO says, close that tab quick. And the investor says, I'll invest as long as it's a double. That's not bad. I giggled. All right, well, I don't know. So you're going to see that I'm going to use AI throughout this. I have been playing with Midjourney, so every image in here will be created by Midjourney. It is a disclaimer that it's done by an unproven, horrible prompt person that gets really messed up images. But you know what? Like, it was fun, so I messed around with it. Sound good? All right. Well, let's drop right in, right? So I don't really do agendas. I told you we're going to do 3 things that we learned at Outreach that worked at Catalyst and 3 things that we didn't. I'll alternate what worked and what didn't. You'll see there's 3 eurekas and 3 uh-ohs. And so the first thing is culture. And you know, for me, culture can be a little bit cliche. Everybody talks about culture. Everybody says you need to do culture. But I have found in talking to dozens and dozens of revenue leaders over the year that few people really understand the power of culture and have even less experience in creating it and doing it. The culture in most companies is an unstoppable force that just happens the way it would naturally happen, and it's not guided or corrected a lot of times, especially by the revenue or sales leader. And so these are a few points that I've made to help direct culture, because culture was a huge part of my success at Outreach. We built a very awesome org where everybody rooted for each other. There was friendly competition and all that kind of stuff. And so this is kind of what I brought to Catalyst. And we just did a study for this talk. And I found out that the deals sourced since the beginning of the year, which is after I kind of got my sea legs in the job, we have doubled ACV. We've more than doubled win rate. And we've cut cycle times by 37%. And so part of that is because some of the things I'll show in this presentation. But I'm telling you, the number one reason is because of the culture I create. And the first thing that I do is I make sure that when I build a team that is complementary, not duplicative. And what I mean by that is I'm very operationally driven. I have received feedback from my family and other trusted sources that I can be a little sharp at times with people. I understand that about myself. So my 2 best frontline managers ever at Outreach came over to Catalyst, and guess what they are? They're culture people. They're softer. They're more about the person than about the business. And they balance me out in that way, and then I balance them out operationally. And so I did that with my sales leaders. I do that inside my sales reps. I do that with my SEs. And the reason that I'm able to do that kind of stuff is because I really help people understand like what is their strength inside themselves. And then we kind of unlock that, which we'll get to in a second. But the first thing in culture is complement, don't duplicate. The second thing, and I think this might be the most important, is I reward exposing risk. Most sales orgs, risk is hidden. Most success orgs, risk isn't even talked about. And the problem with that is when nobody knows what the problem is, nobody can fix it. And so I have really engendered, especially at Outreach, a culture where you are rewarded for talking about how crappy a state your deal is in. You are rewarded for telling how messed up your customer is. And so we really created a whole culture, a whole environment where you get up in front of people and you say, listen, this isn't going well. And I just have a story. I brought one of my top reps from Outreach over to Catalyst in his first 4 months, so his first real quarter. He closed more business than any other rep in Catalyst history. He made $200,000 in commissions. And so obviously the people are starting to get excited and like, hey, what is Kurt doing? Kurt says, I just do what Mark tells me. All right. And that's why, so we kind of get that thing going. But he had a huge deal last quarter. And in that deal, I got out of a meeting and I was like, dude, you got the champion, you got this, the pain, you nailed it. They love the demo. Like, he did a 30-person demo, which you're never supposed to do. And we literally got 7 emails from people saying that was the best demo they'd ever seen. Unbelievable. And you know what he did with me in the Slack channel right after I posted all that? He got in a huddle and he's like, Mark, that's cool. Here's the 5 things that I need you to go do because I have risk in this deal. He didn't celebrate whatever. He knew that what I care about is the risk. I'll celebrate the positive, but I'll help with the risk. And so you really have to make sure that you reward exposing risk and don't punish it. A lot of sales leaders punish risk. What do you mean that deal's like that? What's going on with that? Why haven't you done this? That's bullshit, bully-type sales leadership tactics that don't help anybody. Just be cool and reward risk, and everything goes a lot better. The other thing is I created a culture at Outreach and at Catalyst of self-improvement. I had more reps and managers in going to weekend-long retreats, paying for executive coaches, paying for sales coaches, paying for self-improvement classes in my sales org than I'd met in my entire life combined. And that's because we really got addicted to getting better. Everybody in the office would get better. I would show up at the office. I'd wake up at 5. And when I lived in Seattle, I would drive to the office at 5:30. I'd be there at 6. And when I first got to Seattle, there was me and another guy, our SDR leader. They're the only 2 people in the office at 6 a.m. Now, I'm not saying get to the office early. What I'm saying is create an environment where people are excited to come to work. And by the time I left, we had 20 to 30 people in the office every morning at 6 o'clock just talking about their deals, just talking about how much fun they're having, just talking about swapping. I just did this in a call. I just did that in a call. This is what worked. Can y'all listen to the call? There'd be 6 people around a computer listening to a gong thing. They'd be critiquing each other. And the entire org was addicted to getting better, and there was just no standing still. Your buyers, your market, your competitors aren't standing still. If you stand still, then you're in trouble. So you have to have a culture of constant improvement, and that's not just training people. That's people being addicted to improving themselves as a person. And that goes to the next one is, I really believe if you take care of the person, the business takes care of itself. I do not focus on results very much. I hold people accountable to results. But what I do is I make sure that the person is taken care of. If the person is happy, the person's having fun, the person's working hard, the person feels like they're being smart, guess what? They win the deals, or they save the customer, or they expand the customer. It's pretty simple. But what we do is we focus so much on the deal or on the thing or on the outcome that we forget that the person is one delivering it. And so we might get the outcome, but we've made the person worse in the process. And if you continually make people better in the process of achieving the results that you have, then what happens is you get to move on to other things because they occupy the space that you're in. When you take a step back, what you want to see is your team fill the space. And the only way to do that is you take care of people and they feel very comfortable, taking on more responsibility. And then the last is I'm a big energy person. Every conversation I'm in, every meeting I'm in, I have a few pat phrases that everybody makes fun of me for, and my things in Slack. Until my very last day at Outreach, if you closed a deal over $10,000, you got a personal voicemail message from me calling you, congratulating you on the deal. Do you know how many fucking deals that is at the end of the quarter at Outreach? I would spend 6 hours calling people. But it was all part of this thing of I'm giving you energy. I recognize you. I see you. I appreciate you. This is what we do here. And so I'm going to call you. And I can't tell you after I left how many people said the thing that they'll miss the most is that Slack or that voice message or that little voice note congratulating them for every single deal. You have to give energy. The purpose of leadership, one of the purposes of leadership, is you are an energy creator, not an energy taker. I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in and watched the leader suck the energy out of the room, and now he's put on his reps or on his people, hey, get me back up. Get the environment in the room back up. That's again, lazy leadership. Leadership is supposed to be about being an energy generator. You got to constantly put it off, put electricity in the room. And when you do that, people really respond. People will take energy. When you give energy, people will take it. When they take it, they're more energized. It's pretty easy. All right, here's an uh-oh. Top of funnel. So at Outreach, we had a pretty simple formula. Raise some money, spend some money, grow, and then do it again. And we got really, really good at this. I think we all know now that's probably not the rules we get to play by anymore. And so the thing that Outreach wasn't that we had to do it that way. It's that that way was working and it was easiest, right? And back then, that's what mattered. What we never got to a lot of times was the optimization of the stuff that we'd already put in place. We get it to good enough, and then we would move on to the next thing, because that would get us more results than taking it from good to great. In the current market, you don't have the resources, the capital. Sometimes you don't have the investor support or whatever in order to continue to spend. So the only way to get incremental improvement, yeah, let's go, is to optimize what you have. And so at Catalyst, this is like one of the first things I did is I went into the SDR org, and they're like, oh, we need a new data source. We need a parallel dialer. We need this and this and this. I'm like, how many dials you make a day? 25? I think we can make 100 with what we got, all right? And immediately meeting volume quadrupled. And they're like, oh, we need AI stuff. You need AI stuff for email? Like, let me read your emails. If you do this and this, you can write an email in 3 minutes, and you're good to go. Guess what? Our email effectiveness back then went crazy. It dipped later, which we'll talk about in a little bit, right? But listen, you have to be obsessed with optimization of what you have, not acquisition of what you think you need. And when you get in that mindset, it's fun. That's how I run my personal life, you know? Maybe it's crazy. I still drive the same car that I had on day one at Outreach. It's a Ford Flex. It's a piece of shit. But you know what? Like, I'm optimizing that baby. I got no car payment. Let's go, right? So I think that that's what we need to make sure for top of funnel is we realize we got to optimize what we have. We can't do the raise, spend, grow, repeat of the past. Here's another one is that email. We were at Outreach, we were at an email-first strategy. We used emails to set up everything else we did. Personalized emails that were sent not in a spammy way, that aren't, didn't conform to all these new email gurus that are swapping domains and doing all that crappy evasion of the roles that are supposed to keep the email community safe, right? But we did really good personalized emails, and that supported our phone calls. What we found is if we wrote more emails, if we did them more personalized, we might see a small uptick in our email reply rates and meeting book rates, but we would see a dramatic uptick in our phone call conversion rate when we did that. And I'm convinced that some of it is we were warming people up, but some of it was in order to write the email, you would do the research that made the cold call a little bit more effective, right? And so that was a really important thing. Now, right now, I don't know if you guys agree or not, email is dying. There's a few people that still can do email well, but in general, for most folks, email is starting to die. It'll come back, just like everything does, but it's dying right now. And so I started to help my team get way more creative. All right, so we're not doing necessarily emails to convert into meetings now. We do emails that send people to a microsite, and the microsite is meant to convert people. I didn't hire, one of my co-founders was smart enough to invest in a young gentleman that's like extremely intelligent, but he's not like experienced enough to kind of be moved into a closer role. So he's a go-to-market program specialist, and he's doing very specific targeted things, like for example, using our CEO's LinkedIn to invite people to events and then scheduling dinners, and we're getting 30 or 40% of the people we reach out to get to a dinner, our CEO shows up. It's awesome, but he didn't have to do any of that work. He got to run the business. And so we're really trying to figure out what is the next version of outbound that will work because email isn't delivering the results it needs anymore. And I have some interesting data for you. I recently, like I said, I brought my 2 best sales managers over from Outreach. And so we got deep into the email metrics. And what we found was our emails going out, being delivered, were up. The number of people that we were sending multiple emails to, so that persistent approach was up. Our delivery rate was up. Our unsubscribe rate was down. Our reply rate was up. And our positive reply rate was up. So what the heck? Why? But you know where we were dying is the emails weren't booking meetings. And I don't know why, but there's some kind of disconnect right now between email and meeting book. So you can't look at reply rate. You can't look at that. You have to look as, is this channel booking meetings? If it's not, you need to get creative. At Outreach, email booked us tons of meetings. It probably booked 30 to 35% of the meetings. 40 to 60% of the meetings were booked on phone, and the rest were social stuff. So now I think that's very much reversed, if not worse. I'd say at Outreach or at Catalyst, we probably book 80% of our outbound meetings on the phone and maybe 10 to 15% on email. It's just, you got to be more creative. That didn't work at a Catalyst when I brought it over. The other thing is we had a weekly meeting, pipeline meeting at Outreach that I sat in on with my head of SDRs, our demand gen person, and me. And we had 3 channels that we would track for demand for pipeline creation: demand gen, SDR productivity, and AE prospecting. All right, and we'd sit down in that meeting, and we had this wonderful relationship. I don't know if any of you have listened. We did several podcasts together about it. There was no blaming, no finger pointing. We would just look at the problem, diagnose it, and get back on track like within a matter of a couple of weeks. It was a machine. I brought that to Catalyst. I brought over our head of demand gen from Outreach to Catalyst. And then the VP of marketing I also brought over. And then my head of SDRs is somebody I brought over. But anyway, we would get in a room together, and what we decided early on, though, is we didn't have all the channels because some of the outbound channels were starting to die. So I couldn't use what we did. So what we did is we gave executives pipeline creation quotas. And so we actually track executive referrals. I have this go-to-market specialist. That's what we call a creative channel, where he'll do specific stuff. And so we created about 2 or 3 more measurable channels for outbound that we have quotas for, we have goals against, and we problem solve just like we did the traditional SDR and AE prospecting channels along with demand gen. That added layer of multi-channel and creating more channels had a huge impact on our outbound performance. Our inbound performance was getting better as our demand gen person was getting more situated. But just to give you an example, that go-to-market program specialist right now is booking between 10 and 20 meetings per week, just one person. And so that's been pretty amazing. So, and then the last thing is at Outreach, we did social selling. We were one of the first companies that had an integration through LinkedIn's API when it was very exclusive. We added social channels, and we did all that. But I didn't see the power of building a personal brand until I met Max Altschuler and Scott Barker. And I would get them into a deal session. I'd be like, yo, Max, I can't get to anybody. And literally within 5 minutes, he would have a meeting booked via text with somebody at that company that was super influential in the decision. And after a while, I was like, yo, I got to do this. Like, I can't always ask Max to carry my water. And so I started building a brand about 3 years ago. And I would say pretty much now at any account, I can get to somebody if I try hard enough through the connection I've made. I've gotten our COO and co-founder to do it and our CEO to do it. And I would say probably, roughly 35 to 45% of our deals in our current pipeline are highly influenced by the personal brand stuff. I probably this week here at SaaStr at least had 3 people come up to me and be like, hey, our company just started an evaluation and I didn't see y'all on the list. Like, what do I need to do to get y'all into the evaluation? And that kind of channel, that's not traditional social selling where you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, do whatever. This is personal brand building that makes a huge difference for one of the channels that you can use to drive pipeline. And it's a big reason why, maybe most of you see one of the 3 of us in a 30-day trailing period between the 3 of us. Even after the LinkedIn algorithms, we get between 1.5 and 2 million views a month on LinkedIn. That's a very powerful channel for us, right? So that's something that didn't work at Catalyst is we'll just do the social selling stuff. We had to transition to the personal brand. All right, Eureka number 2, something that works, is the sales experience. Again, I don't know if this is cliche or not, but I have a methodology that I've pieced together from command of the message, which is force management, which if you've never been sold by command of the message, it's fucking awesome. They are so good at it. And then I combined something from Skip Miller's called proactive selling that talks to you about how to talk to people above and below the power line. And then we brought in some value creation stuff that I've just always used. And so I have a very strict methodology. I have a laminated card that every sales hire in my company gets. We go over that, which we'll talk about exactly how to use that. And when you do that, you create an elevated sales experience. I would say in 20 to 30% of the deals in my pipeline, if we win them or lose them, I get a email of, I'm either, hey, be careful of your rep, I'm poaching them, or that was the best sales experience that you ever had, or we just brought you in to check the box for the RFP, and this actually turned into be a way more difficult decision than we thought. And you do that with sales experience. And the way to do that is differentiate, don't bash. People don't want to hear you bash competitors. What they want to know is, why is there a difference? And so you have to be really succinct on why there's a difference. And the way that we do that at Catalyst, the way we did it at Outreach is, one, you put baby in a corner, which we'll talk about at some point in this presentation. Two is you have 3 kill shots, which are 3 specific things that are factual that they can't argue that you do and the other person doesn't. And then 3, you create your like what I call the RevOps, specialist list, which is like the overwhelmingly long list of minutia that nobody really should care about, but it just looks impressive in a really long email with a million things that are different, right? So we differentiate, we don't bash, we talk good about our competitors, we appreciate them in the space. If they're the choice for you, cool, all right? If they're not, you'll come back later, and we're totally cool with that. The second thing is we use sales stages. We don't go stage 1 to 1, all right? Stage 1 to 1 is the danger of a sales org. You can't monitor your throughput. You can't see where your sales process is falling apart. But I would say in my casual conversations, anecdotally with CROs, I would say 50 to 70% of deals go from stage 1 to 1. And you just lose all visibility. And you know whose job it is to make sure that they go through all the sales stages? It's not the reps. It's the managers. And we'll talk about the managing to the process, but the managers absolutely must manage the deal in a stage-based deal management way. My number one takeaway from being at Outreach and talking to sales leaders everywhere is people know how to do discovery calls. They know how to do cold calls. They know how to negotiate. Nobody teaches people how to manage a multi-deal pipeline. If I give a rep 30 deals, I guarantee you they're going to not touch at least half of them the right way that they should, and they don't even really care, and all that money just goes up in flame to get those deals in there. You have to go through every single deal, every single week, and make sure that they're in the right stages and that they're following the process. It's super important. That's how you build that experience, is because when you're doing stage to stage and they have to do a certain thing in a certain stage, guess what? Repetition makes them awesome. And people get really awesome at moving deals forward because they have to, because the managers hold them accountable. And that's like manage the process. I have a weekly meeting. It's the most important meeting in the entire company, I think. It's the one-on-one. We call it deal review. It's not a one-on-one. A one-on-one is more about the person, which we talked about earlier. Deal review is a selfish meeting for me. I'm asking everybody in the org to spend 30 minutes to an hour every week just to help me. And I'm very upfront about it. I need your data correct, and I need you to make sure you're following the process. I don't care if you get anything out of this meeting or not. This meeting's for me. I'll give you 39 hours a week of any of my time. I need you to give me 1, please, just 1, all right? So every week, every rep meets with every manager. They go through every single deal in their pipeline, and they have to have a next step. That next step must marry to the sales process and methodology. And if it doesn't, that's how we inspect if they have the right neural pathways of how they're thinking about moving deals forward. If they're like, oh, I just had a discovery call. Now it's time for me to do a demo. We don't do it like that. You don't demo just because you did the discovery call a week ago. Now you schedule the demo for next week. That's not how you move a deal forward. That's how you lose a deal. All right, did you quantify the business initiatives? No. Then you better get a meeting to do that. And then after we have that, then we can prioritize how to create the right demo for them. And so that stage-based methodology, managed by the frontline managers. At Outreach, I ended up with, 30 frontline managers and second-line managers and everything. Everybody hated it, but I loved it. Is once a quarter, you had to submit 2 recordings of your deal review meetings with your reps. We asked reps to submit recordings of their discovery calls, right? Well, I asked the frontline managers to do recordings of their deal review calls. And I would watch most of them. And then we would have a film session together as a team. And I would go through and be like, all right. And they would self-diagnose how to run better deal review calls. Because I would tell everybody that's the most important meeting of the week. If that meeting's right, the data in the CRM is correct, so we can make data-driven decisions. 2, we can inspect the mental process by which reps are thinking about moving deals forward. All right? And then the last thing we can do is we can coach them when the mental process isn't right into doing things the right way. And so that's a really important meeting. I also tell reps that their job isn't to win deals. It's to help our buyers make confident decisions. I don't care if you pick us or not. I just want you to be confident about it. If you're confident about it and it works for you, awesome, high five. I'll see you at a conference and we'll hug. If you are confident and it doesn't work for you, guess what you do? You come back to me, all right? Because I was a trusted advisor. If we don't win the deal, they'll never not come back as long as you handle that confidence part correctly. So we create confident decisions. We don't win deals. I don't care if you pick me. Just be confident about what you do. We make sure that people aren't uninformed. And I would tell you that this is the one of the biggest deal killers is people have misperceptions that never get cleared up because you never address them, because you don't care about them being confident about a decision. You care about them winning, about them signing the contract. When you help, you're like, hey, I'm just sensing a little hesitation. Like, what are you unclear about? What are you nervous about? Like, again, I don't care if I win the deal or not. Like, just let me help you. What do you got? And people will open up and actually tell you like what's causing we call it get to the friction. What's the friction in the deal? Once you get to the friction, you can relieve it. But if you don't create a experience that helps people understand that confident decisions are what you create, then it doesn't work. And then lastly is buyers don't know how to buy, y'all. None of them do. And they definitely don't know how to buy your stuff because they probably have only ever done it once or twice in their career, maybe. So guess what you have to do? You have to show them how to buy. And what most people do is they try to manipulate people through that process to get them to choose you, versus if you just guide somebody, hey, do you know what business initiatives you're trying to solve? No? Then you should go figure that out with your VP or your C-level, and then we should come back and talk. All right? All right, let me go do that. And they come back. All right. Now, do you know how much of a problem that is? Can you quantify what your 3% churn rate decrease in the last quarter cost you in money? No. Well, let's do that together real quick and figure it out. Oh, you know, you have a $100 million book of business, $25 million a quarter, 3% is what? $750,000. Don't check my math. I don't think that's right, but it might be close. And then that's what now we have a $750 per quarter problem. Spending a couple $100,000 on Catalyst becomes a lot less scary in that case. So we guide people through what they need to do to make a confident decision. We don't manipulate people into making decisions based on other stuff. All right, number 2 is rep centricity. At Outreach, I really tried to build an autonomous sales team. I kicked Manny, our CEO, out of deals really early on because I'll never forget, we were doing our first $25,000 deal at Outreach. We actually had everybody in the office, and Manny and I are on the phone in the conference room on speaker talking to the buyer because everybody's like, there was like maybe 12 people at the company at the time. And we're like, oh my God, this is happening. And guess what Manny does? Manny gets scared, and Manny's like, we'll give you unlimited users for $25,000. And guess what the guy said? Send the contract right now. And Manny's like, we won. I'm like, no, we lost. I'm like, we could have gotten 25 users for $25,000, and then we could have expanded with them. And so I kicked Manny out really quickly because he was too involved in the business and cared too much to do what was right in the deal. And so he was so worried about losing, right? Because the sense of loss for a founder and a CEO is so much greater sometimes than the sense of gain. And so he's so worried about losing the deal that he didn't want to risk it at all. And you got to risk it to do the right thing. So I built a very autonomous sales org, and not until probably my 3rd or 4th year did we even actually started doing executive alignments. I was hardly in any deals. My reps became like machines at how to close deals, which is really good. I thought I'd bring that to Catalyst. Guess what? Did not work. All right. We used to only bring Manny in on the very biggest deals and our C-level on the very biggest deals. Now I usually involve either me, our COO, or our CEO in on a deal in stage 2. Like, you're in the deal, you're going to say hi, you're going to do something, you're going to pop in a meeting, we're going to create some kind of connection. And so you have to make sure that your C-levels are coming in super early. Right now, it's hard to win deals. Every deal's hairy. You can't lose a deal because the competition brought in a C-level and you didn't. That's inexcusable. So you have to make sure you're bringing them in. That's part of our process and our experience now, right? The other thing is at Outreach, managers coached calls. We'd have these team film reviews. They bring their team into a thing. I would show up sometimes. We'd have this awesome, like, creative, like, let's watch the film of what happened. All right, in this call, who thinks that they did great? Who thinks they could have done better? What was a spade and a diamond, right? The diamonds are the goods. The spades are the bad, right? And how did it all work? And so we would do this. It was this amazing team-building culture where everybody felt like they were contributing to everybody getting better. We still do that at Catalyst, but now what we do is managers are on calls. I have lowered my span. My managers have 3 to 5 reps. That's it. And they're on calls with reps there as support, right? That has made a huge difference in our ability to get deals done, especially when I'm coming into a new org that has so many people that don't understand our system. It needs to be modeled, so that was really important. The other thing is I used to preserve pricing at Outreach like nobody's business. I'd be like, all right, you want to go with SalesLoft? You're in my pipeline, 12-month deal cycle. See you in month 13 when you're going to sign with me. And if it was like $20 lower than what I wanted to give the deal for, I just lose the deal. I didn't even care. All right, guess what? The deals are a little bit pickier now. There's not as many of them, and there's hair on every single one of them. So I have a thing is he who makes the deal wins the deal. My reps are empowered to do stupid stuff in deals once. You can go do something stupid once, don't do it twice, but just make sure you win the deal if you do something stupid. And so we're getting really creative on deals. I'm doing pricing I probably would never done before. I'm doing concessions I probably would have never done before. I'm doing buyout things I never would have done before. But you know what? We had our best quarter ever last quarter, and so I think the board will forgive a few wonky deals that are not so great in the first 12 months because we did multi-years, and the second year we get right-size them. So make sure you got to be really creative, and that requires team effort. So we have a dedicated Slack channel where the VP of Finance, me, our 2 sales managers, our onboarding leader, and our CSM leader all get together, and they make sure everybody knows what's going on in all the deals, and we get super creative about what we're doing. And then lastly is I used to do big deal calls at Outreach once a quarter. I do them every single week right now, and they're team-based calls. Everybody shows up to the entire call for 1 hour. We go through depending on the month of the quarter we're in. Month 1, we talk about deals that need to close in month 1 to create off a good start and create urgency on deals that are usually going to push because everybody's like, we're in the first month. So we correct that with a meeting the first 4 weeks of the quarter. It's important to get off to a good start, relieves all this pressure. The second month is pull-in month. So what deals in next quarter can you pull in this month? Let's identify them. Let's talk about them. Let's run the plays to get them pulled in. And then the last month is like just focused on closing the deals that we need to hit the number and get in what we call the big rocks. The big rocks set the tone. All the other flotsam and jetsam can happen or not happen. But if you get in your big rocks, you're probably going to hit your number. And so we do team-based deal calls every single week. We change up the season. Right now it's called Fall League. Next quarter will be called Winter League. There's a good Summer League. You come, you show up, and we give 1 point of emphasis for every AE on every deal. For example, do you have executive alignment, and how would I know? All right. Do you have a business initiative, and can you tell me exactly who told you that? And we give them 1 thing to do in the deal, and that way we get this comprehensive, really nice focus in the deal, and we try not to make strategy calls or one-on-one calls with your manager and whoever else you need to do a call. This is not a strategy call. This is a, how do we get this deal in if we're in month 2 of the quarter like we are right now? How do we pull in deals? Let's figure out the deals we can pull in and go execute. So rep centricity didn't work at Catalyst. I had to build a much more manager-involved, executive-involved process than I did at Outreach. Best story wins. So listen, it's better to, you have to let your passion overcome your professionalism sometimes. We're so busy being professional that when somebody says something crazy, we don't even blink an eye. I remember the first time a CRO was like, I don't even understand how you guys create pipeline. I was literally like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? I was like, do you see what I'm doing? Do you want to see my pipeline numbers? Do you want me to open up Salesforce? Do not tell me that you can do this with mail merge in Excel. Like, that's fucking crazy, right? And people are like, dude, you kind of went off. I'm like, yeah, because I'm fucking passionate, right? And people love to see who you really are. And I'll get passionate with people. I don't always drop the F-bomb on the calls. I might, though. But listen, you got to be passionate. And that's how a story becomes real. The second one is we talked about it earlier, put baby in a corner. So anybody know Dirty Dancing? All right. I thought so, like 4 people. Maybe everybody else didn't raise their hand. There's a key scene in this awesome Patrick Swayze epic picture about a young woman coming of age that is fucking awesome, all right? And in the middle of the thing, she's with his family. She wants to be with him, but he's not the right social class or the right whatever. And he's going to get her, and she's sitting in the corner, and he tells her dad, don't put baby in a corner. All right, well, what we do for competitive stuff at Outreach, and we did it at Catalyst, is we put baby in a corner. The best way, there's 2 parts of the story. There's your story, and then there's your competitor's story. If you don't tell your competitor's story, guess who gets to tell it? They do. And one way that we, I think, pretty much beat up on SalesLoft is we had a very convincing, fact-based story of what they were and what we weren't. And if you wanted that, that's good for you, and we'll let you go. If you don't want that, then you need to pick us. And so we put baby in a corner. We don't let customers define who they are. We define who they are by having a great story about them. The last thing is you got to be unique and smart. So we'll talk a little bit about something, and you guys can tell me if you think it's unique and smart or not in a second here. But a part of your story, like when I came to Catalyst, is we switched to customer-led growth. We had 117 post-sales and revenue professionals that helped crowdsource the entire language of what it was, how it worked, and all that kind of stuff. And then they all posted for us, and we took over LinkedIn for probably a week. And I can't tell you how many inbound leads I got and how many conversations of people saying customer-led growth when I'd never heard the concept before. And so you have to really make sure that you get out of the echo chamber of what you think is awesome and figure out something that's unique and smart that everybody will glom onto. That's really important part of what I took to Catalyst. And then you have to repeat this story like constantly. I think my reps want to throw up when they hear me go into my plateau versus stairs thing, which you guys will hear in a second, or my CLG stuff. Like they're sick of it. But you know what? I say it with passion. I say it with energy. And I don't train them on it. I just do it over and over and over again. I make my CEO do it over and over and over again. Every company, all hands, our other co-founder does it every single time. Every single team meeting, we talk about it, right? And guess what? We don't have to train people. People just naturally adapt the language in the mindset of their leaders if you don't abandon it too quickly. So make sure you repeat. And then lastly is believe, don't regurgitate. If you don't really believe it and you're just saying it, don't fucking say it, all right? Get it in you. And my former CRO at Outreach told me this awesome thing. She's like, disagree and commit, Mark. Disagree and commit. And I think that's really why saying when it comes to this story, I don't care if you like the story or not. If people like the story, then you just need to believe in it. And if you can't, maybe this isn't a place for you. So best story wins. All right, and then this is number 3. At Outreach, we had multiple owners of the customer journey that specialized in that part of the customer journey. I brought that concept to Catalyst when we got here, and it became evident to me within a couple months that that wasn't going to work here. And I don't think it works in the market anymore, even though most companies are structured this way. Who's been through the team offsite sticky exercise where you end up with like 80,000 stickies around and like, well, we send them an email, and then later we call them, and then we have this onboarding meeting, and here's the checklist. Well, we did like 20 of those at Outreach at multiple offsites. Guess how many times like it actually turned into something that was tangible that a rep could use in a call? Like never. But guess how awesome everybody felt after looking at all those stickies, and everybody's out with their camera. Like everybody felt like awesome, right? Don't do team offsite sticky exercises for your customer journey. It's a religion, all right? People, so I am the apostle in the wilderness. I am John the Baptist. I have locusts and honey in my teeth and a loincloth around my loins. And guess what I do? I go into the world and I create converts. And I constantly talk about why our customer journey is so important and how it works. And so I am the person that owns that. That was one of my requirements. I was really lucky after Outreach had about 20 or 25 offers to go work at other companies. And one requirement is I have to own the customer journey. I have to be the steward of it. I don't think multiple people can own it anymore because it becomes too segregated. And there's too much difficulty at handoffs. So handoffs do suck for everyone, right? Because there's no single thread that stretches through the entire customer journey. It's SDRs doing what they need to do to hit their number. AEs doing what they need to do to hit their number. Then they send over bad fit customers. And now the onboarders have to deal with that mess. And the onboarders sort of get it right, but then they hand the mess over to the CSM. Then the CSM has this mess. And 3 months later, they're wondering, why did the AE sign this deal? Why did the SDR even go after this account? That's all because of bad handoffs most of the time. So you have to have a single thread. At Catalyst, our single thread is called Moments of Impact. We believe with conviction that the only way to get recurring revenue is to have recurring impact. If you don't know this concept, look at Winning by Design, go to their YouTube channel, watch it. It is a masterclass in the SaaS business model. Most people are playing the SaaS game with perpetual license models. They think the way to win is to stuff the top of funnel and everything else will take care of itself. That's not how the SaaS business model works. It rewards, and 92% of the lifetime value of the customer comes after they sign the contract. So you have to focus on that part of it. And that single thread is what unites that entire journey as they go from stage to stage and person to person. Now, the way that I have seen this most messed up is imagine a line chart where there's a straight line in the beginning. And on the bottom axis, on the x-axis, is time, and on the y-axis is value. So as you're going through time onboarding, there's no value. You're doing integrations. You might be doing trainings, but nobody's really using the platform to get value. That's fine. And then all of a sudden, there's this massive uptick in value as customers come on board. And everybody sighs a sigh of relief on month 4 or 5 or 6 when we got them in, y'all. All that work, we're good to go. And guess what somebody does? Guess what nobody does for the next 6 months for the renewal? Creates any additional value for them. None, zero. So guess what the customer says on the 12-month renewal? What have you done for me lately? Guess what the company says? 4 or 6, 8 months ago, we created all this value for you. They're like, guess what the customer says? I don't care. And then you're battling, why aren't they expanding? Because you're not creating any value for them. Why are they not renewing? Because they're actually starting to decline. Because guess what? Humans get used to something. Once they're used to something, they don't care about it anymore. They don't attribute value to it anymore. And so what you have to do instead is you have to have stairs. Stairs are tiny bite-sized pieces of value that you consistently do over time. It's that recurring impact. There's something called VRRS, Variable Ratio Reward Schedule. And what that says is humans prefer small, unpredictable rewards for their effort over large, predictable rewards that are less frequent. So a human will pick, I'll take 80% of the reward in total if I get it unpredictably and frequently, meted out over time, versus if you just give me everything all at once and it's semi-infrequent and very predictable. That's how humans work. It reinforces a lot of human psychology. But yet we've built all of our onboarding to give all the value in one power-packed moment on month 3 to 6, and then we don't do crap with the customer after that. That's not how the SaaS business model works. It's not what it rewards, yet 99% of orgs I see, that's exactly what they do. You have to have that stair-step model and not create just massive initial value. And then lastly is you have to have an operating model. How do you look at your business? We use the double bow tie of winning by design. Every area of that model has an input, what is given to that role, and an output. What is that role required to turn that input into? We measure the conversion rate, so we know if we're doing that efficiently. We measure the time to make sure that they're doing it fast enough to meet the business goals. And so every role at Catalyst has a responsibility inside that double bow tie operating. They have a metric that matters, the input, a metric that they're responsible for, the output, and then they are held responsible for the conversion rate and the time it takes to convert. That kind of model takes you from millions of metrics, which mean nothing, down to a few key metrics that you can actually monitor and improve. So that's something that didn't work at Outreach. We didn't really have an operating model that a single person owned. We had people that owned every individual part of it versus a role that owned a part, but one person was over the whole thing. So that's my talk, y'all. I think we have a few minutes for Q&A. If somebody wants to grab a microphone, yeah, step up. Thanks.
Hello. You mentioned earlier about like personalized emails and calls really not working the way that they used to in terms of booking meetings. You said get more creative. I'm curious to hear some examples of like things that you did that were creative that actually worked, because we're in the same exact boat, noticing the same thing.
Well, some non-creative things I did is I quadrupled the dials per day requirement by SDRs, which was met with a lot of complaining until they saw their paychecks the next month, right? That's the first thing I did. The second thing I did is I limited email writing time, and you have 1 hour to do all your emails a day. If you can't do it in there, then don't send them. They're so unproductive, it's not even worth sending the emails anymore most of the time. Then the third thing I did is I hired this go-to-market program specialist that runs like sniper level creative executive programs, like the executive dinner thing I said. Or right now, what he'll do once a month is he'll do this export using something called Phantom Buster or whatever, and he'll export every like and every comment of every person I get. He'll run a cross reference or whatever the crap it's called, I don't know, a pivot table, and it'll be like, here's everybody that's in our ICP, here's all the titles that we want, and here's all the people that are in our current big bets list. And then all those people are prioritized with an outreach from me about like their engagement with my content. And he manages all that for me, makes it super simple for me. And so, I bet, like I said, 35 to 45% of our pipeline right now is influenced by the social stuff. Those are a couple ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sir.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. Question about your bringing execs into stage 2. Is that usually initial demo?
So not in my world. That's called a meeting-based deal management. I don't do meeting-based deal management. That would look like disco, then demo, then you do maybe like some kind of negotiations call, then you do the value creation, the proposal call. We do that. Those are for small transactional deals that need to be really guided, and they need to have super short sales cycles. So at Outreach, we had under 500 employees. Our average cycle time was less than 30 days. Our average deal size was $20,000. We had micro, which was under 35 employees, that we closed in 5 days that are about $7K, and it was very much meeting based. So what stage 2 for us is you are trying to quantify business initiative and find an implementation date. That's the date by which they need to be implemented in order to receive the value in time to hit their business objective. And so our executives come in and be like, what they're trained to do, what I do in that call is I'm like, listen, let me just whiteboard real quick what the value of this is. And we whiteboard it out. And guess who takes a picture or screenshot of that and whatever. And then I'm like, and when do you need this by? And so their job is to create that urgency and make the problem big enough that there's urgency, and then to make the timeline short enough that there's urgency for the deal to keep moving forward. So that's what they do. There may be a demo involved in that. There's usually not. Demos, to me, are the only purpose of a demo is to create belief, to do the hard work of an evaluation. And so if you need to create belief, do a quick demo, but demos don't win deals. If you're counting on demos to win deals, then you're going to be in trouble. Because that means that you're relying on the product, not your sales experience. When you rely on the product, somebody can come out with some whiz-bang thing, and now you're in trouble. Nobody can touch my sales experience, and so that is a competitive moat in my go-to-market org, and so that's what we run. But that's what I would say is it's in the quantifying business initiatives and selecting an implementation date is what they're trying to help the rep do and make faster, because those are difficult things to do.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. On the subject of pricing, I was wondering for earlier stage startups, sometimes you have a wide range of customers, enterprise, small enterprise agencies, or B2C. How do you define earlier stage pricing model? Do you have a fixed pricing, like you follow through that, or you just per customer base?
I've always worked in like a B2B enterprisey situation. I've never worked in like a small transactional, so I don't have a lot of expertise there.
Or even for enterprise, like would you strongly define like this is the pricing structure and we're only going to follow through that, or it's more dynamic?
So I went through three repricing projects at Outreach, and I got $700,000 of education from Bain and whoever else that we paid to create were honestly the ugliest slides on the face of the planet. And this is what it boiled down to every single time. Have a good, better, best. Like have a good one, a better one, and a best one. And then 70% of people will pick the one in the middle because that's human nature. You have the small one for competitive situations, and every once in a while you get a sucker that pays way too much for whatever is in the best package because the real value is in the middle one. So that's what I learned after $700,000 of consultants. I do want to point out one thing, though. So we've had like 3 or 4 questions. This is a symptom right now. I'm not going to call it the disease. Where have all 3 or 4 of those questions resided in the customer journey? Tell me where. Pre-sales. I'm telling y'all, this is where companies are missing it. 92% of the lifetime value of a customer comes post-sales. Nobody's asked me a post-sales question yet. Like this is the blind spot in every go-to-market organization. The rigor in the CS org is not what you think it is. If you get in there and get your hands dirty, most revenue leaders started in sales. And so they don't understand the customer success world, and guess what they don't want to do is go open up Pandora's box and find out it's a shit show. I hate to say it, but it's a shit show in a lot of companies. And you better get in there and fix your shit, or guess what? You're not going to reap all the rewards of the SaaS business model, and you're going to die because the perpetual license model of put more in at the top to cover all the crap falling out the bottom does not work right now. Do you have a post-sales question for me?
Kind of.
Oh, yeah.
All right. For building your personal brand, sorry, I'm short. Have you found that there was more value created in that post-sales, or was it more on getting the attention of people pre-sales? And what were the things that you found were the most effective in building your personal brand?
Yeah, so it helps everywhere. It helps me with customers that are unresponsive and we can't get to them. It helps me with prospects that are unresponsive and we can't get the deal. So I would say I don't think I can give you a percentage, but it feels fairly balanced.
Okay.
The first thing about building a brand is consistency. You have to post every day, and you just have to get over yourself. And you just have to get used to it. I post every day. I do longer form posts, which I think some people don't like, and it takes me 20 minutes every day. I was just talking to my man, Nate. If you don't follow Nate Narsala on LinkedIn, dude's hot. He's fire. I follow like 4 people. He's one of them. All right, so make sure that you got to post every single day, and then you got to be yourself. Like I know when I met Nate for the first time, I'm like, this is the guy I know from LinkedIn. And I think I present myself very similarly. Like if you read my posts, my voice is this. I'm like this with my family. I'm like this with my kids. I'm like this with my friends. I'm like this with my reps. I'm like this with my customers. This is just me. I'm old enough now. I know I don't look old enough. I'm almost 50. I could give a shit if you don't like me anymore. Just don't be indifferent, all right? Like me or hate me, but don't be indifferent. I can deal with people that hate me. I can deal with people that like me, but I can't deal with people that can't figure me out because I'm pretty open, right? So that's the number one thing is have your voice and be you, and then post every single day about shit you know about. I don't post anything on LinkedIn that I have not done myself. I don't postulate about things I heard about and some person that's a guru somewhere and like what my version of that, because I just saw he got a lot of traffic. I post about the stuff I'm doing, the conversations I'm having, the plans I'm making, the experiences I'm seeing, and the numbers that I get. That's what I post about. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just broad strokes. What's the incentive structure that you use to drive that 92% of value post-sale?
Yeah, so I think that is a study that Winning by Design did, and they just looked at customer lifetime value and said, where does the value come from when you sign the deal and then after you sign the deal? When they add up all the value of the expansion and the renewals, it's 92% of the total value of that time.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. I mean, I buy into it. I'm sure everyone buys into the 92%, but what's the incentive structure you use in your organization to capture that value? So are you paying CS, quota-based pay?
So it depends on the stage of the company. I can tell you where I'm at Catalyst right now is very different in outreach when I left. But right now, I believe that AEs in early stage companies need to be rich and they need to make a lot of money. The only way to do that is for them to own expansion. So my AEs own the land and the expand. That lowers the friction of trying to do a big deal because you're not going to get paid on all the revenue that somebody else is get paid. They just get deals in and then we grow them afterwards. So that's the first thing I do is I highly incentivize. I pay dollar for dollar, new to expansion, and then I just monitor the expansion customer ops really well. So my AEs are highly incentivized to just get a deal in, and then I make my money when I grow it, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is my CSMs are comped on GRR. Their job isn't to grow accounts. Their job is to do recurring value over and over and over again. And then every time we have one of those little step-ups in value, they go in and they ask for an opportunity to expand, or if it's later, closer to renewal, the ability to renew. It's a natural conversation because you're talking about value you just created. You're asking if you can create more value, which means more money. The number one thing I see wrong with customer success people, not the number one, but top thing is they've forgotten the purpose of a professional relationship. It's not to be friends. Go be a friend if you want to be a friend. The purpose of a professional relationship is commercial transaction. It's money. That's the whole point. That's why you have a job. So you have to help them understand that their job to talking to people is to translate that increased value into increased commercial capture by the company. So we do a CSQL process that allows to give them a variable part of their comp that they can max out and make tons of money on as long as they're building expansion pipeline for my AEs or are highly incentivized to sell it because it's a one-for-one commission. That's where I'm at, sub $10 million, just about to cross that line. And then I'll stay there for 15 to 20 million because what will happen is eventually, and this happened at Outreach because I did the same thing, is the amount of expansion will start to increase disproportionately to how the new acquisition does. And that's because it's easier to sell expansion deals. And so you have to rip them apart at some point. I'm done?
Yeah,
all right, cool. All right, thanks, y'all.